Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Finding Freedom. In this episode, we're going to talk about the title, When One Eats, Everyone Eats. So I had a couple people tell me that I should go into consulting because of my military background and things like that. And I had an idea that came from, well, hanging out at a bar, ironically, right? And while I was sitting there, I was talking to a law enforcement officer, and he was like, yeah, we don't get paid enough, so on and so forth. It causes a lot of crime and corruption. We had to cut back on staff and things like that. And I got to pick his brain a little bit. Now, while I was hanging out at the bar, I realized that the bartenders pull tips, meaning that when you give a tip to a bartender, so on and so forth, it goes into a jar. At the end of the night, it gets divvied up against all the other bartenders and staff, so on and so forth. Hence the title, When One Eats, Everybody Eats. So I asked them, I said, so why don't they incentivize police officers to do their job and work as a team so that they can make more money? And he looked at me like I was crazy. He goes, how are we going to make more money by doing our job? I said, well, if you want to get drugs off the street, let's say you take down a drug dealer, a big time drug dealer that has a lot of cash and everything else. What happens if that cash, let's say it's $100,000, so on and so forth. What if a percentage of that goes to the team as a bonus within their check for doing their job? Hence, when one eats, everyone eats, and it's a collaborative effort. So they're not only, well, I would say, profiting from doing their job, right? So let's say out of the $100,000, they take a percentage of it, divvy it up as a one-time bonus for the law enforcement officers to, say thank you, so on and so forth. Now that puts more money in their pocket, and it also incentivizes other officers to do their job so that they too can eat with the team, so on and so forth, etc. Think about it. If you're in sales, right, and you're working for a company, right, and you're in sales, right, and you can gather all this money, you get a commission of the sales because of the sale that went through. If it's a $100,000 sale, you get a 20% commission normally, or, unless the payment structure is a little bit different. So, why, if the United States wants to solve the drug problem, don't they incorporate this into their facility? One, it will take down the whole corrupt police officers who normally get paid to look the other way so that other things can occur, so on and so forth. Two, it'll increase the efforts of the police officers because of the incentivized reward, carrot, stick, so on and so forth, if you understand that metaphor and analogy, right? And then, of course, when they do a good job, they not only get rewarded by, well, these great citations written by higher ups on, let's say the mayor or somebody says, great job for doing what you did, or the governor or senator, whatever, for getting the drugs off the street and taking down this big drug dealer, so on and so forth. But they also get a financial reward, which helps them stay on the right side of the law. Now, when I told this to him, he goes, that's a great idea. He goes, I don't know why they don't do this, right? Because, think about it. In certain areas back in the day when I lived in New York, police officers had what's known as a quota on the 1st and the 15th, normally on the before payday or after payday or on payday. There would be a lot of tickets. And then I found out that the reason why they were handing out so many tickets was because, well, people had money to spend. They would go out and splurge, probably drink and drive, so on and so forth. It incentivized the officers, well, to do their job. And if they hit their quota number, right, they got a bonus, right? Well, what if you could apply this to, well, taking down drug dealers or crooked businesses or people that are doing money laundering, so on and so forth, such as the TD Bank job, right? Now, granted, that might have been on a federal level, but let's think about it, right? TD Bank got away with smuggling, or not smuggling, fraudulently moving money, meaning they were doing money laundering, right? And because of that, they did about $1 billion, give or take. And the fine that they had to pay, or they did like 2 billion or something like that, and then the fine that they had to pay was $1 billion, so on and so forth. What if part of that money got divvied up against the team that actually took those people down, which incentivizes them to do more with their job, so on and so forth, right? Because the more crime they take down, the more money they make, right? It's a Well, it's a win reward type of thing, right? So it's like, okay, if I do my job and I do a good job, not only do I get all these medals and all this other stuff, but I also get a extra bump on my paycheck, and it's all completely legitimate and legal. Say thank you, so on and so forth, to the drug dealers for breaking the law, and then thank you to the police officers for enforcing the law, getting the drugs off the street. What if they were putting fentanyl, right, into the things that your kids are doing nowadays, right? They have these different types of marijuanas and all that, and these different types of drugs that they're incorporating fentanyl into because it's very addicting, so it keeps people coming back for more. If you want to get that off your street, why don't you incentivize this little incentive plan so that, say, okay, part of this goes into here. After the court case and everything is settled, what happens to the money? Well, a percentage of it goes as a bonus to the law enforcement staff that worked on the case, as a bonus, as a thank you. And, think about it. Would that not incentivize other law enforcement officers to want to step up to the plate, maybe get in shape, work on these teams, so on and so forth, so that they too can go ahead and profit and make more money? Because let's face it, I think in North Carolina or in several other places, starting off as a police officer, I think you make $50,000 a year. Possibly after a couple of years, you're making 70, right? But you're supposed to go after these people making hundreds of millions of dollars. Well, what if now you're incentivized to do your job? Not only do you get paid more money, now you're more incentivized. Now nobody can buy you, so on and so forth, because if you do your job correctly and take them down, you're going to end up with the money anyways. And as I once said, the person with the money normally ends up with the money. The person with the knowledge normally loses the knowledge to the person with the money. Now, if the drug dealers are smart enough because they have the knowledge to break the law to make money, well, once the police officers do their job correctly, the people with the money, i.e. the government, State Department, so on and so forth, etc., the people who have the money will get to take the money and then incentivize their staff by giving them a bonus or a cut or a commission, so on and so forth, for the mission that they were on. So this is just a little food for thought for those of you in law enforcement. If you get to watch this video, think about that. Bring this up to your chain of command. Bring this up as a group, right? The union works together. Why can't law enforcement work together as such to put this in effect so that, yes, when they say, oh, we need to defund the police, that's fine. We're just going to take down all your drug dealers, because the people that are normally saying that the police are bad and this, that, and the third normally are on the wrong side, unless the cops are crooked and they're getting a cut, and then they have a reason to say so. And that'll prevent, internal affairs investigations, because, you don't need cops breaking the law, so that will prevent and mitigate the internal affairs investigations when it comes to crooked cops doing things that they shouldn't to get ahead. Because why is that? The reason why normally there's an internal affairs investigation is because one person got greedy, decided to cut corners, as they say. If you read the Bible, David, he cut the corner or whatever, that whole story, etc. Right? When you cut corners and you look out for only one person, the rest of the team can possibly turn against you. Why not work together, work as a cohesive unit, using small unit tactics or large unit tactics in order to benefit society, benefit the world, benefit the United States, for crying out loud, and put more money in your pocket by benefiting yourself by doing the right thing and staying on the right side of karma so that it doesn't come back to bite you in the ass. This has been another episode of Finding Freedom. Till next time, my friends, take care. Have a great day. Mwah. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.